Hello folks, welcome to GamerSlice and welcome to the first E3 2017 recap and review video. In this video we're going to be recapping and reviewing EA's press conference. So they started off saying they're going to show 8 new experiences, and the first of those is Madden 18, which I'm not a Madden fan, but to be honest this seems like the most innovation, and they even claim that this is the most innovation they've put in the Madden franchise for decades. I'd be inclined to agree from what I'm seeing, because most of these sports games seem like it's even more formulaic than Call of Duty, to be honest with you. There's something called Long Shot. I think that might just be the subtitle for the game, or that might be what they're calling their campaign. Not quite sure, but for sports fans, Madden fans, seems like it might be a pretty good addition to the franchise. Then we got some updates on Battlefield 1. They're going to be adding night maps to the game, which is really cool, and that's all coming along with the In the Name of the Tsar expansion, which is coming this September. It will be basically just adding the eastern front of World War I, and also the cavalry, which I can't remember what the Russian cavalry is called. And they're also adding, as you might have heard, the Women's Battalion of Death, which is one of the few women's infantry groups that fought in World War I. They weren't very effective, but they're adding them nonetheless. And you might have heard about the controversy surrounding that it's disproportional to the number of soldiers that fought in the millions of soldiers that fought in World War I. But as long as there's historical context to it, which there is, I'm totally fine with it. There are also going to be new competitive modes, apparently, and as they described it, tighter features that are going to be coming to Battlefield 1. So different types of modes, smaller modes that people apparently have been requesting. And there will be more on that at Gamescom this August. So we didn't get any details on that, but it's just saying, okay, there's new modes, there's new features, new variations to game structure coming later on. Now, I don't actually own Battlefield 1, but I'm planning on picking it up probably this week because there's a sale on for PlayStation 4 right now, and that's where the people that I would like to play with it, play it with, are at. So, yeah, if you guys don't know that, there's a great sale. Even the deluxe edition is like $32 or something, I think. So it's a pretty good deal for right now. Great game to play with your friends over the summer. So we know that Battlefield 1 is continuing to get lots of support from DICE and EA, and that's great news. So then EA moved on to the esports scene and some of the competitive, footage from competitive matches and whatnot of EA sports games and all that. And then, of course, from that they bumped it in, started talking about FIFA 18, which, it seems like every year EA or one of the other developers, usually EA, has some sort of like a celebrity guest, I guess you could say, or famous guest to come on and talk about that game. Maybe they're trying to reach a new audience. I'm not really sure what's going on. But this time, for instance, they had Pele, either last year or maybe it was for FIFA 16 previous year. But this year they had the best guest I think they've ever had, in my opinion, which was the 2 guys from Men in Blazers. Apparently they're like an indie sports casting thing. I think I've heard of them before, but I don't really watch sports. But Men in Blazers was there, and they were funny and they were relevant to the topic. They actually did bring some new light to it, and they, Pele, he probably doesn't play FIFA, but they do, and fans or people that watch their sports casting also play FIFA. I mean, it's not to say that people that watch Pele don't play FIFA, because a lot of those people are the people that would buy FIFA. But still, these guys were great. They announced or talked about the game very well. It actually added value is the main point there. And of course, Alex Hunter is going to be back for the FIFA 18 campaign as well. And people were really talking about him, it seems, as just this virtual sports player is getting lots of attention, which is quite impressive, to be honest with you. But yeah. So now we got Need for Speed Payback next. I was a little bit skeptical because I saw this game listed on Amazon a few days ago, and I was like, oh boy, another Need for Speed game. The Need for Speed reboot, if you want to call it that, before that. Didn't seem like it was too good, and it didn't interest me. It wasn't anything I wanted to play. And this one I was kind of thinking, it's probably the same thing. But after seeing this gameplay, I actually think I might get it. And it's not high up on my list, but I would consider buying it this year and playing it this year. And maybe even reviewing it, who knows. So this, like many other racing games, has a campaign that's, a story-driven campaign. And you actually play as 3 protagonists. And the premise of the game, as the subtitle Payback suggests, is it's a revenge mission. You're going after the antagonists, who are a cartel that's known as the House. and the game really just has an overall Fast and the Furious vibe to it. So pretty impressive, and normally I haven't been too interested in the story driven games. I think The Crew and Need for Speed, I don't know, I just remember there's two of them that basically had the same thing. We're like, oh, your brother's killed or something like that. You're racing through the circuits to find the guy who is leading up all these illegal street races to take him down. But Need for Speed Payback is a little more exciting than that. As I said, it's much more along the lines of Fast and Furious, really exhilarating. Now, this game is also going to be open world, and they say they're going to be improved customization on the cars, which is a big thing that Need for Speed games haven't really been known for. But I mean, hey, The Crew looked really great when they showed off basically car porn before. It was amazing. But that game didn't end up being that good. So to actually put that in a game that has a chance of being better, like the Need for Speed series has a better track record, and as The Crew is the first one, and it was kind of like, hit and miss, kind of. Now on the gameplay, the story mission that they showed looks cool, looks innovative, but the physics do need a bit of touching up, because some of the cars, when you smashed into them, they'd go rolling a bit too much, and it'd just be kind of unrealistic. Like, I'm fine with you having a bit of unreal physics, but when the physics don't behave consistently, or it just seems odd, then it just gets a little overly ridiculous, and not in a good way. But they got plenty of time to do those touch-ups, and of course, it's Need for Speed. I'm sure the racing will be great. It just depends on how they set up the races and what kind of cars they put in and so forth. Now, before I move on to another game, I want to mention the way they presented Need for Speed Payback. Started out with Jesse Wellens, who's a YouTube content creator, or I think he just said content creator, maybe. I imagine he's on YouTube. He was a bit nervous, not really ready to present, and I don't know if this was planned. I imagine it was planned, but Marcus Nielsen, the executive producer, came in there, and he probably wasn't stepping in to, like, make sure things went more smooth. It was probably planned that he was going to step in there, but Jesse, it was it didn't go down super well, but the gameplay impressed, and that's what's important. And of course, some people just don't do too well in front of a live audience, and I don't hold it against him, but it was a little bit cringy. Now, next up was the game that impressed me the most at EA's conference, and it's part of the EA Originals program, which is geared towards getting indie developers published by EA and helping them have a platform. But it's AAA production value. It doesn't even seem like it's coming from an indie studio, but it was an indie studio at one point. The game is called A Way Out. It's by a new development team called Hazelight, and the people that are part of that team, including the director and writer Joseph Fares, were the makers of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which is perhaps one of the best indie games out there. If you have not tried it, I recommend you, very strongly recommend that you play it either with a friend or by yourself. Even in playing it single player, there's some great mechanics that make it a worthwhile experience, and the story alone is just fantastic. I mean, it even made me, if I recall correctly, it made me cry towards the end of it. So fantastic experience from that team. And now they have formed a studio called Hazelight, and they're bringing us A Way Out, which is, get this, an exclusively co-op experience. So it's a co-op adventure game, and you can play either online or even split screen. It's actually designed with the split screen approach, couch co-op in mind, which is absolutely great. It gives off quite a bit of an Uncharted vibe, and there's a lot of similarities, and they've clearly had some inspiration from that, especially in terms of their gameplay design. But the theme is very different. You play as two convicts. I don't know if they were falsely accused, if they actually did commit crimes. But Vincent and Leo, and your goal is to basically escape prison, at the beginning at least, because it seems like there's a lot more to the game afterwards. Maybe you're evading the law, you're trying to get back to your family, help them out. At least one of them has like a wife and a kid at home who need his help and whatnot. So very great experience. I'm curious though if they can still deliver that really like heart-touching experience, something like that, with co-op features. It seems a bit harder to do, considering when you're doing co-op, it's more about the fun and engagement and just doing ridiculous things a lot of the times, which in escaping the prison part, there's a lot of teamwork that's involved there and great stuff. But from the story side of things, especially later on, I'm curious how they're going to handle that. So, but very interesting game, and I quote, Joseph Fares said, "It will kick ass," and I'm not inclined to doubt him. It seems pretty crazy. I mean, one thing's for sure, this is going to be a revolutionary game, no doubts about it. Whether or not people follow in the footsteps of A Way Out, who knows, but it'll be a very unique experience, and it will probably change the way a lot of people think about games if it ends up doing what I think it's going to do. And that is coming early 2018. Now moving on to the last bit before Star Wars Battlefront 2, they kind of showed off and talked about how Frostbite on the Scorpio, Project Scorpio, which of course I'm recording this after the Microsoft press conference, so we now know it's called the Xbox One X. But the Frostbite engine on that looks great, and it's probably on par with like a low high-end PC in terms of graphics, or very close to it, maybe still mid-range, but very impressive for a console. Then they showed off Anthem, which is the next game from BioWare, probably the team that didn't work on Mass Effect Andromeda, which is hopeful, which means it's probably not going to be a mess like Andromeda was. Seems like they're the same team that worked on Mass Effect 3. But it seems kind of like a crossover, maybe between like Mass Effect, Destiny type RPG, something like that. And I'm not going to say any more about it because I have watched the Microsoft conference, and so I've seen what it is. But that was my initial impressions before that. But it's much more than that. So stay tuned, look at the Microsoft video, or just look up the game if you want to figure out more about it. It looks pretty cool though. It's primarily co-op multiplayer. That's all I'm going to say about it for right now. And then we had NBA Live 18, which they have something called The One. They didn't really make it very clear what that was, but I guess the idea is that all aspects of the game are carried over between like multiplayer and single player. They're all intertwined. And there's a demo coming out for NBA Live 18 this August. Now also they talked about their charity thing they're doing, which is EA Play to Give. I'm a bit skeptical of some of the charities. They gave $1 million to it, which isn't really too much for them. But some of the charities, there was 3 charities they did, which is He for She, Pacer Center, and Ditch the Label, which are basically all types of like anti-racial or like just equality advocate charities and stuff like that. Which I'm always very skeptical of those charities because of oh, maybe they're just trying to exploit the political climate or something like that. And then other times it's just I've mentioned before, I do come from a conservative background, so yeah, I mean, take that for what you will, but hey, I'm not completely opposed to that. I mean, I would have to look into the charities more, but if they're something that is like they're a charity that deserves to have money given to them, and they've got good intentions that aren't like distorted in any way, then I mean, hey, I'm all for that. And it was great. And the one thing that I do like is that they're showing that games can be a place to bring people of all walks of life together. And that, I think, that's the underlying message. And I think that's what is important. So, yeah, I'd give an EA a pass on that. And I don't really think they're trying to shove any kind of political message down our throats with that. Well, at least not exactly. So I'm going to leave it at that. Next, really cool, this week only, EA Access on Xbox, Origin Access on PC. Well, they're going to be free this week, and there will be, I think, about 5 or 6 different free trials for PS4 users this week. So great. Plants vs. Zombies, God of Warfare 2, Battlefront, stuff like that. Free trials, great. Go play them if you like. And then, main event that I think most people were tuning into the comments to hear about was Star Wars Battlefront 2. First thing I will say, the intro was quite humorous. It was John Boyega's tweet about, will Star Wars Battlefront 2 have a campaign? And, of course, lots of people responded to that. I thought it was funny. I kind of liked it how, EA kind of took it, humorously. But at the same time, the way they did it, and making it seem like John Boyega was the one that prompted that change, which maybe he was, maybe they were actually paying attention to what he was saying more than other critics or whatever. But it kind of marginalized the other critics and reviewers who were talking about all the issues before that. But nevertheless, that's all water under the bridge. We got new changes. Let's talk some about what they are. So the stage presentation opened up with a cosplay entrance, which was good and not cheesy, which was quite refreshing to say the least. So we know now that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to have a campaign. They brought back split screen, which is, I don't actually know if we knew that before, but basically more everything, all eras. There's going to be class system, there's going to be space battles, which I'll talk a little bit more on that a bit later. So we already knew about all this stuff, like a month or two ago whenever EA announced it and they held their own thing. But we do know that the campaign will bridge the gap between Star Wars episodes 6 and 7, which is really cool. So we get to, instead of doing it in the movie form, they're going to do it in the game. So it really encourages that kind of cross-use, I guess you'd say, of the different mediums. And apparently there's going to be 3 times more content than Battlefront. I'm not exactly sure how they're gauging it, but 3 times more, so it sounds like a lot. Couch co-op, we got that. Skirmish is carrying over, which they added in an update to the Battlefront 2015. And, more everything. apparently, is what they're saying. It's just basically, it's like we're improving every single aspect. Is the idea we got, and of course we got all areas, all 3 areas, class system, which was kind of missed in the first game in the reboot, and then space battles, which they're not exactly what we wanted, because as you may recall, if you looked into what they announced earlier, we had like 32 players for the main game. I think it was 40 players, I think. But there's only like 16 versus 16, I think, in Space Battles. So it's exclusively Space Battles, no Galactic Conquest. So it's still missing that, which is very unfortunate. Yeah, they basically fixed everything else, and of course we got better graphics. The battle point system is also new. Instead of picking up the little pickups that randomize what you get in the map that they had in Battlefront, the reboot, we now got a battle point system where, depending on how good you do in combat, or doing objectives and whatnot, you'll get battle points, which then you can then use to spawn in as a hero or get vehicles and stuff like that. However, I do wish vehicles still did spawn in the map, so even if like you're somebody who likes exclusively doing vehicles and like being a support person to like get your team closer to the battlefield, I think you should be able to do that. But now you can't really do that unless you do other things first and get the points. So that's a little unfortunate too, but I think the battle point system should work fairly well nonetheless. There's also going to be some free content coming post-launch, and it seems, at least with the 2 things they showed, which was Finn as a character and Captain Phasma, I don't know why they're saying there's going to be free content right after launch. It hasn't launched yet. It's still months away from launch. Why don't you just add that in the full game rather than making it DLC? I continue to watch some of the gameplay they showed, and quite frankly, it looks very exciting. So yes, EA listened to our feedback and acted upon it, but regardless of that, this is really what Star Wars Battlefront 2015 should have been. I mean, even as it is now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 here is pretty much on par with the older Star Wars Battlefront, but we should have been on par or beyond par with the 2015 remake or reboot of the Star Wars Battlefront series. I'm glad we got, our feedback has been heard. It's great. It shows that developers will listen if enough people express these concerns and what improvements they want to make to the game. But it would be nice if we could have had a little bit more. I honestly don't think that most consumers or people like me or fans of the series are asking for too much. I don't think we're feeling unjustly entitled to that. You can say, oh, they made the graphics way better, but the graphics and the hardware scale with the times, so you should be able to have better graphics without pretty much any additional effort. I mean, to really push the graphics as they did, maybe, but honestly, you could still have great graphics that fit the times, and it's not going to hold back the game in other departments. So really, I suppose I could compromise between having better graphics and getting Galactic Conquest. Oh, wait, I can't. I shouldn't have to. Nevertheless, Star Wars Battlefront 2 looks really awesome. It's probably within the top 5 most anticipated games that we know are coming out this year for me, and I'm definitely going to be picking it up this year. Hope to see you guys online, and hopefully we here at Gamerslice can maybe do some streams of it. Imagine Diego's probably going to get it. Now it's time to wrap up and give the final verdict. So the final grade for EA's E3 2017 press conference is a solid B+. Very close to an A-. The only thing that holds it back a little bit from that is that there was only one game that really excited me a bunch, and that was A Way Out. In Battlefront 2, it was, it looks really solid. They showed some gameplay, but they also shared a lot of stuff about it earlier, so it kind of took the steam off of it. But overall, pretty solid. And of course, I'm not really super hyped for the sports game. So I guess if I was somebody who was really into the EA sports games, I could probably easily give this conference an A-. But overall, I don't know, just the presentation and some of the games they showed, it didn't quite have that overall consistent excitement throughout the conference, which is what really kind of holds it back from anywhere within that A range. So there you have it. Be sure to let us know what you guys think in the comments, and stay tuned for the rest of the E3 coverage on Gamerslice throughout the next couple days. And I will be doing some live stream impressions of some of the conferences, which may help get some more like unfiltered thoughts on it if you guys want to know that. So thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, we hope to see you guys in the next video.